Hello, legends and super legends. Getting ready to head out. I believe Paul will be there. I know Christian sent a text, said that he'll be meeting us this time of year right now, and I'll make a video addressing the cycles of trading, the periodization. Things are kind of winding down. Next week, we're planning on doing a local grand fondo here in the area, Conroe area. I haven't signed up yet. I'm going to do that ASAP. We talked about it. Alan, Paul, and myself are planning on doing that if everything works out. So that will be a good thing. I'm going to do a full recording of it as far as from administration. So those of you who haven't been can kind of know what's involved and just do a good documentary in addition to getting some writing clips. So that's my plan. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the ride today. Like I said, Christian is coming. We're just going to do maybe 3 hours thereabout. That's the plan anyway. I didn't get to do my usual routine this week, so I'm just kind of going by how my body will feel. Not really sure, but I'm taking just a few things. I got a banana and so forth on here, so I'm going to go ahead and pack up. I got my bottles ready. I'm taking the blue bike, but at the Grand Fondo, I plan on using the orange bike. The orange bike really goes with the kit. It picks up this line over here. One of our legends just mentioned this morning, in fact, I was looking at some of the comments, haven't had a chance to reply to all of them, that it would look great to take this bike with the kit. I was already aware of that because the orange here, this band, actually picks it up. But I found these socks online. I got an extra pair. Paul's gonna have one also, but not today. He hadn't picked up his. I'm gonna see how it looks with the kit. I'm just gonna give it a try, style points, no big deal. But we know black goes, we know white goes, so I'm trying to get a little more creative. These were on sale. They were pretty cheap. I think $9 or something. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get ready and I'll get some clips for you guys. This Saturday, I hope you get a chance to get out and get some miles in your legs. Rolling out. Stopping over here to oops, I need to drop this bag off in the trash here. My wife always leaves stuff by the door that needs to go out in the trash. Especially if it's nighttime, she doesn't walk out here. We got a lot of little cretins that live in our area. I kind of like them. Possums and other things. We got a possum by the size of a small dog that lives in the tree in the backyard, cavity in the tree. I like those guys. She doesn't care for them much. Those skunks and other animals. It's a nice morning. Probably about 7:20. Clear morning, so I ain't about to put on the light. Pretty good. Another Grand Fondo I had mentioned on November 4th, and for some reason those geniuses are trying to charge $75 US for a bike ride. And so I was like, that's almost double what we normally pay. Usually we pay 35, 40 bucks for that. And to do it in November when everybody's kind of backing off riding anyway, it's like they're trying to kill the ride. And this ride had been held a year before in April, and they claimed that the turnout was low. It was like a memorial ride for a veteran. So if the turnout is low, first of all, why do you move it to November? And then why do you double the price of admission? Morning. So it's like they're going out of their way to kill this ride. You know, so when I mentioned to the boys, I said, is it me, but does it seem like this ride is unusually expensive for just a ride? I'm gonna be the one riding my bike. I mean, what am I getting for 75 bucks? Just seemed high. So we're doing another ride next week, and the entry fee is 35 bucks, if that gives you an idea. Same area, same part of town. Entry fee is like $40 less. You know, I don't have to pay you to ride my bike. There are roads everywhere. It's just really a social thing. But it's like they're trying to rip us off. So that one's on the fence for November 4th. That's why we're doing this one next week. And that should be pretty interesting. I see someone in a US kit. Good morning, sir. How you doing? Hey, you're a sight for sore eyes. Hey guys, say hi. This is one of our legends here, followers on Strava. How you doing, buddy? I'm good. Good to see you out here. Let's stop here. Paul's coming to join us. That's a top ball. Yeah, I wander out there. So we're heading out, heading north, and Paul's messing with the camera. I handed him the camera when he got here. You see that manhole cover? That's the only manhole cover in this whole spot. Somehow he's messing with the camera and he finds it. You know, I didn't realize it until I was looking at the clips, because you see us, we were going, but I noticed he had been hanging back, and he was, you know, Paul's very analytical, so he was studying the gimbal's little remote on the stick that you actually hold. It has a separate remote that has its own display, and that's what he was looking at. There were certain things it does he hadn't noticed, but I just noticed we're riding and he's further back, and I kind of know how small you are in the camera when there's a huge distance. So I'm looking back and wondering what he's doing back there. I'm kind of waving him up right there. I'm waving him to come up. I was wondering what he was doing back there. I'm not sure if you ride on it, but invite them to come out here because we do different routes, different distances. I think they would also love Christian shooting. So we're chatting over here. I'm talking with Jeremy. Hadn't seen him since, I think, January. When we used to ride with UMC, Jeremy had shown up for one of those rides, and I had approached him and chatted with him like I always do new riders. He was very surprised that we remembered him.
Adrian, take a look at the The stick, man, the battery keep going off. Is that correct?
Oh, that's not, yeah, that's just the remote. When you don't use it for a while, that's power safe.
Okay.
So that's what Paul was messing with when he found that manhole cover. The remote is attached to the stick that is removable, but the display on the remote will go to sleep. And he just had never noticed it. We don't really use it that much.
I like that USA kit, man.
I like the fact there's only $5.
Wow, that's a good price.
Yeah, not the greatest quality material by any means, but it's not absolute dirt bad anyway.
Yeah.
But Jeremy was telling us he got a good deal on his kit, on his USA kit. So right here, I'm standing because I'm in a good size gear. I think I'm in like a 5319 or something like that. And there's sometimes I just really feel better being in a good size gear early on to kind of loosen up a little bit. It's not very heavy for me, but we're not really doing anything now other than warming up. So that, that makes it okay. Because if you're in a gear where, let's say your cadence is low and then people are accelerating or the speed is changing a lot, it can cause a problem for you because it can just wear your legs down. So when the speeds are changing, I downshift and get in the lightest possible gear for the speed that we're doing. So right here, most of the time when we're just chilling, my cadence is probably 75 to 85 thereabouts. That's normal. We're just getting into the ride. Because of the weather being overcast this morning, even though it's clear now, for some reason when I did the edits, the software failed to calculate the lap. So we're probably about 15 minutes into the ride. It says 8 kilometers. So I just did not display the lap time because it was blind. So here, Jeremy rolls to the front. Paul is filming, and I just slid behind Jeremy. Now Paul is not 100%. He had some stomach issues this week. He ate somewhere and the food didn't agree with him. So he's not 100%. He's below power. He's recovering. But Paul is so die hard. I mean, he wanted to get out because we get to get out on the weekends. So we look forward to this. So when he got to the ride, I kind of asked him how he was doing. He said he's okay. And so the plan is for him to spend as much time in the draft as possible, because he's really good at the filming. So he's going to focus on that. And so Jeremy and I are going to do most of the work here. And I don't mind doing a lot of pulling because I don't get to ride that much. I didn't get to ride this week, but maybe one day. So this time of year, steady riding is really good for the body. And so right here, Jeremy and I are talking. It's kind of hard to hear him because there's a lot of wind. I had to dumb the wind down. Paul says car back. Jeremy rolls to the front. So we can do single file. It makes it easier for the car to pass. But here, this car behind us did not pass. He was turning into one of these driveways that we just passed here. So he didn't come by. So what I was talking about earlier is I had to dumb the wind down because I was going to try to just go with what the camera does. And there was just so much wind noise in the clips. And it would have been too distracting. So what you're hearing now is the electronic adjustment by the software to reduce the wind noise sound. And I think it's just better because it's very loud. It's very windy today and it's just everywhere. I had discussed with Paul that I was going to try to leave it au natural as much as possible, but it just would have been too hard for you guys to even enjoy the music or the commentary. It just would have been in the way, and it's just noise.
I had wanted people to kind of hear what we're riding through and try to share with us. But that sound you're hearing now, it's like 10 times as loud with the natural wind sound, because that camera, even though it's set to keep the wind noise down, it does its best, but the wind is just everywhere. And so I think it's better to go back to the way I've been doing it, so that people can enjoy the tips and the suggestions that I'm making and not get distracted by wind noise. So I'm at the front pulling. We're coming to the stop sign. I look left first, because that's where traffic's coming from. It's a divided highway. And then I let them know it's clear. And I had mentioned to Jeremy that we were going to do like 2.5 hours. The ride ended up being a little over 3. It was a little longer than Jeremy had planned, but I think he said he was up to it, so I kind of went with that. You see we're doing about 35 kilometers an hour, slightly downhill here. It says 0, but it felt like it was slightly downhill to me anyway. And you see my cadence is in the 90s. So I stayed in the same gear, and as we got into the ride, my cadence went up. And what I'm trying to explain here is, I guess down the road, depending on what goes on, I may, when the right moment comes along, maybe get a power meter so people can have some other metric. People have expressed the desire to have power displayed and so forth. I mean, I don't particularly care for it, but I think it would be a nice addition. But I can't do that right now. They just don't have one out there that's going to work for me as far as the portability, and I'm not going to change my pedal systems. I love the Shimano platform. So if Shimano comes up with one, or they come up with one that is affordable and portable, I'll put it on there so you can have a different number to compare to heart rate. The reason I'm bringing that up is it's very windy, and speed is not the best indicator of effort, because even though we're doing just 30, 31, or even 35, the wind that's out there to do 35, we're putting out a good amount of power, and we're doing these speeds for 3 hours. So we don't go fast early and then slow down later. In fact, at the end of the ride, I like to go even harder. So I think a power meter would be a good indicator to show our effort that is independent of the conditions. 200 watts is 200 watts. But just right now, I don't want to use the channel funds for that. We're not at the point where we can afford that on the channel. So we'll get around to that eventually. Plus, I haven't found one that will really be portable between the bikes. Easy to use. And I'm not doing a crank-based one because they're just not priced well. I have Campy crank sets, and they won thousands of dollars for a crank set with a stages attached or something. I don't even know if stages. I think they do. I think they have a carbon-based one now. But you might as well buy a whole crank set. So it's just not practical right now. It's just another metric. It doesn't make you faster. It can help you as far as give you independent information, but that's about it. I always make the joke about Museo, and I don't know if I've said it on here, that there was a guy riding with Johan Museo, the Belgian champion, and he came with heart rate monitor, power meter, all that stuff, and then got dropped on the hill. And at the stop, Museo asked him, "What was your power meter saying when you got dropped on the hill?" And that's kind of the joke. The joke is that, yes, they're nice to have, but you just need to go ride. You can analyze stuff later. Because I look at stuff later. I look at how long I was in this zone and so forth, heart rate zone. And the reason why heart rate is not a good indicator, of course, besides the variability, is that it's specific to the body of the person wearing it and their fitness level. My zone 2 is different than someone else's zone 2. So you can't just go by, oh, my heart rate is 153. That may be a different zone for someone else, or it may take more work for them to get to that number than it does me, or it may take less work for them to get to that number than it does me. So there's so many variables. That's the biggest pro for power meters. 300 watts is 300 watts. It doesn't matter who's riding the bike. That's the thing. So I put that on the list for down the road when the channel can afford it. Those of you who are well off, if you want to send me one, I will gladly use it. So hint, hint. Okay. Anyway, but let's get back to the riding at hand. So I get to the front after Jeremy had pulled, and I decided I was going to try to keep the tempo the same, because when Jeremy would go to the front, he would pick up stuff a little faster. And I wanted to make sure that we kept the effort reasonable so that we can do the duration of the ride and not get too tired. See, a lot of times when you ride with a group that you have not ridden with before, there's a pressure that we put on ourselves to perform. So, you know, Jeremy has not ridden with us much, so it's always in the back of my mind, is he riding at this speed because he wants to make sure he's not going slower than we want him to, or slower than we usually go?
Good.
That's always in the back of the mind. I'm asking Paul here how he feels. So now he's putting on his glasses because it's been a little misty.
Okay, let's go.
And so he's putting on his glasses. But the point I was making is that, you know, you hook up with a new group and guys have this thing where, you know, you don't want to look like the turtle of the group per se. And so you get to the front and then you pull because you pull fast because you're not sure, am I pulling fast enough? Am I pulling slower than they usually do, you know? So I try to make people feel welcome, and I try to talk to people who are unfamiliar riding with us and try to let them know, just relax and just ride. Just ride your bike, you know? It doesn't matter to me whether you're going slower than I was pulling when you get to the front. But it matters to me if you're going faster than I was going and we're planning on doing a 3.5 hour ride. That's about, this ride is usually this loop, 3.5 hours, because we you know, the wind I'm talking about, and we're riding to the hills. So we got wind and hills. You're up and down and you got wind and hills. So it's always around 3 hours for us to do the 60 miles because we average close to 20. You know, anywhere between 18 and 20 miles an hour. That's where our speed ends up being. We don't really try. That's just where it ends up being. When I post stuff on Strava, it's usually like 28 point something kilometers or 29 point so, you know, 30 kilometers average, whatever. Because it's always going to vary. Because this area here, especially this time of year, we get fronts, the wind's everywhere. So the reason I'm focusing on that is when you go out to ride, don't worry about your speed. Focus on how you feel and are you in the zone that you had planned for that day so you can enjoy your ride. The body does not care how much ground you cover, but if it cares how hard you work for how long. This is a climb here, and I did not shift. I'm pedaling harder. I'm using force, and my cadence has dropped in the 80s. Which is fine. I look behind and it's clear. So I'm letting them know, showing them the cracks on the road here. We're going to turn left here on Flint Ridge. And the rollers begin, they're even more pronounced on this road. And like I said in my earlier video, that's why I moved on this side of town, because Houston is a flat place. But the north side of Houston is where you find rollers. And if you know, it's just so much more interesting for riding, in my opinion, anyway. You can ride your bike anywhere. But the southwest side of town, the south side of our city, I think deep south, they may have some rollers there too. But the west side of town in Houston, I lived on the west side, it's flat. You know, unless you go way out west, past Rosenberg. You know, even we have a century every year called the Katy Flatland Century. Because Katy is out west of the city, off of I-10. So the ride, the Grand Fondo, is actually named the Katy Flatland. You can ride 100 miles on flat roads. They have that in the summer here. So I've done it before, so now I don't get excited about going to do that. It's just, you know, you go and what people try to do is they do a 5 hour or less century. That's what they use that for. And that's the motivation. Because you can carry some speed. You get a good group, you can cruise at about 40K or more. So here, we're coming to our first climb, and I'm still leading. And I'm just taking what the climb gives me. And Paul pulls over to the left to get a good view, a good angle. Because we're holding that camera. If you're behind somebody, you gotta really angle it right. And you can see I'm working here. I'm putting force in the pedals and just letting my legs do what they want to do. And at the top of the hill here, I shift up to keep the pressure on. I don't want to spin. I want to feel the gear. You can see my cadence is going up almost 10 RPMs harder. But I'm shifting because there's another roller up there coming right ahead. Paul's moving around to get different angles to make sure he doesn't just film Jeremy. I went ahead and edited quite a bit of this to remove where he was just behind Jeremy, and the camera, you couldn't see what was really going on. So because we want you guys to see what we see. That's another roller we just went over. And then I shift up again to keep the pressure on. There's a rider up there on a mountain bike in a white shirt. He's riding on the shoulder there. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to keep the pressure the same. I'm at the bottom of zone 4. Close to sweet spot. That's where I like to be. If you spend a lot of your training spent in sweet spot, you get the most gains without overreaching. You know, less chance of burnout at the sweet spot because it's just hard enough, but not too hard. You're above tempo, but below threshold. You don't need to know exactly where it is, but you need to know that as long as you're close. So we turn here on John Cooper School Road, and I'm keeping the effort about the same because this road continues to go up. It's about probably 0.5 and up, 0.7 thereabouts. I'm looking at the socks here that we got online to try. Paul likes it. I think it's okay, but Paul's really high on it. He likes it a lot. I think black socks go better, but we're actually going to be talking with Santini, and we're going to try to get the designer who designed the jersey to give us 3 concepts on socks, gloves, and hat, because winter's coming. That will be part of the design of the kit. And so this is a good option. You know, I'm looking at it now. It looks pretty good, but I'm leaning towards black. I think black looks better, but that's just my eye. You know, I may be wrong. Paul likes these, so we're going to be wearing them. He wants us to wear it at the Gran Fondo that's coming up this Saturday, October 14th. So here we're heading southwest towards Tomball, Texas. We're in Tomball, heading towards Spring Creek Park. So Jeremy and I are at the front. Paul is sitting kind of in the middle because that's the best place with the wind swirling around like it is. Whenever you're in the middle of 2 riders, you're getting the draft from both sides. The wind's coming from our left. We're heading east right now. We're going to turn right, which will take us south. So the wind now is mostly behind us and from our left. But the funny thing is we turn and we don't really get pure tailwind, but there's a little bit. So the wind is definitely behind us. I'm standing because this bridge, those cracks are not level early on. And so by standing, I let the bike just bounce over them without my tires or wheels getting a lot of pressure. I'm checking to see if my light's on. If you look at the sky, it just got cloudy. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
yeah, and Paul confirms that it is on. I was trying to put my hand to see if it would reflect on my hand. And there's a rider up there. I think I froze the frame. Yeah, this guy is barely moving. I don't know why, because we got a tailwind here. I guess he's tired. So I look behind, the lane is clear. I let so we stayed far away from him, and he's literally just not moving. So we spoke to him and went by real quickly because I wanted to get out of that lane because this is a busy road. I didn't want us to have to stop because he was not moving at all. So about here, there's a hiatus in the ride. There are always points in the ride where you get a chance to drink, you chat a little bit. It's almost like a timeout in a way. That every ride has that, and if it doesn't, it should have it. And this is the opportunity for riders who are hanging on to regroup, drink a little bit of water. You know, it's just something. So when you do your rides and you're drafting and the effort is hard, you look forward to these little breaks. You know, that's why I try to encourage more and more people to do group rides because they really challenge you. They challenge you more than you will challenge yourself. Whenever I do a group ride, my cadence is faster overall, average-wise, than when I ride solo. So about here, we're just kind of chatting, and you can see how dark it has become. This is early in the morning. It's a little after 9 o'clock. And, you know, that's why I put the light on. That light is very effective. It can be seen up to a mile away. The camera does not do it justice. The light is so bright that they tell you not to look directly into the light.
All right, got it. Keep moving.
I'm telling Paul that the light has changed. To hurry up and get closer because that bridge is coming up. Jeremy attacks. So I decide, okay, let's see what he's got. We got the wind behind us, so I'm in a big chain ring. And I'm just spinning whatever gear. I'm probably in the 5319 or something like that. I'm not in the middle of the cluster. I'm up. And I'm not all the way up. That's why I think it's at 19. So he just continues to ride up this climb, and I'm thinking, does he realize how steep this bad boy is? So I just sit on his wheel. I did not want to pass him. I just wanted to see what he was putting out. We're putting out a good amount of watts here, but we got the wind behind us, so we're carrying 32 kilometers. That's like 20 miles an hour up this thing. It goes up to like 5%. It doesn't show on overload, but it goes up to 5%. This is the steepest pitch right here. And then right here it lessens. So with the wind behind you, you can do what we did. So we have a tailwind, basically. And then again, I'm looking at those socks again, and you know, Paul likes them, but I don't know. I'm on the fence. They're all right, but he likes them, so you know, they're not bad. This is just a trial run. Because I even told him, I said, hey, I didn't even open yours just in case you don't like it. We can send it back. He said, oh no, I like them. I like them. Came and picked up his sock after this ride. I guess they didn't want me to change my mind. See, Paul takes a wide turn here, and he said it was because when he hit his rear brakes, they didn't slow him down as quickly as he's used to. We ended up checking it out because he and I rode on Sunday. We ended up checking it out, and the pads were too far away from the rim. So it was a minor adjustment that we did before the ride after this, and he was good to go.
This brake doesn't really hold up that good.
Yeah, Paul's talking about his rear brakes.
The back brake doesn't hold or seize the bike that well. Yeah, I just noticed coming down that hill.
Look at it at the store.
Yeah.
Is it rabbit?
No, it slows, but not quite. Probably time for new pads, right?
Yeah, he mentioned he might need new pads. Now, the pads don't wear out on rim brakes that often. You'd have to have something going on the wheel to wear out these pads. I've never had to replace my pads. I've been riding for a long time. They work really well. If you keep your wheels clean and nothing on the surface of the rim, your pads go for many, many years. So that's why I told him, nah, you don't need new pads, just an adjustment. So we ended up adjusting it on Sunday when he came for the next ride we did. And we wore our kits again. So I have 3 sets of these. So does Paul. I just like wearing them now. Now that I have them, I'm like, why advertise for other people? They fit really well. The pads are just awesome. Santini did a good job. So I just got an email from the Santini rep. I will be talking with him this evening. As I'm working on this video, he sent me an email. He's going to call me tonight so we can go through and talk about other things like gloves and whatever, and what the process is. Process and costs and whatever. And you know me, I'm always trying to get a package deal. So I want him to make us an offer so we can get more stuff and add it to the Veloharmony web store. And down the road, we're going to get bottles with VH logo. They're not just going to be bottles. I found bottles made by Specialized that do not allow mildew to grow in the bottles. I was like, wow, because we all have bottles. Who needs to just go buy bottles? You need a reason to buy bottles. So these bottles, the plastic resin does not allow mildew to grow. Just rinse your bottles after you ride. You're good as gold. And wow, you know, you can put all your electrolyte drinks, whatever you want in there, and mildew will not grow on there. Something about the treatment. You have to take care of it. You can't use scratchy stuff to clean and all of that because you will remove the protective layering that they have in there. So, I'm still learning about it, but that's what I want to carry. Special stuff. So we'll have it in the web store down the road. So Jeremy's done pulling and I pulled through here. This road is a grade. It's like maybe 0.5 to 0.7. And of course the road is exposed, so the wind is coming from the right. So the draft is on my left, and that's where Paul is. Paul is directly behind me. You can see he's close. He's got a good shot. The framing here is very good. You can still see my feet even though he's close. So we're coming to the stop sign, and I'm checking for cars. I look left, I look right, it's clear, we roll. It's getting more difficult because the grade is increasing and the wind is swirling around. And I want to make sure my legs get a good workout. When I don't have the time to do a lot of riding, when I do ride, I treat the ride more like a workout for my legs. So Jeremy's sitting in back there. It's a nice view there. And you can hear that wind. It's been dubbed down by 2 sources, electronically by the camera and then electronically by the software. If I didn't do that, it would just be noisy. All you would hear would be the wind. And I thank goodness that these features and these effects are there to reduce the noise. Because it just seems to sound louder on the camera than it does when you're actually riding the bike. For some reason, those microphones, I point at the obstacle there. Paul moves to the left away from it and gets back in the draft here. And this is kicking up even more. And these are points in the ride that if you have not been conserving your energy, you can struggle. Because we're well over 2 hours of riding and it's just getting more challenging. And the effort is staying the same. You can see I'm at it says 1% there. But look at my heart rate, 166. I'm above tempo here into zone 4 in challenging conditions in the 3rd hour of the ride, approaching the 3rd hour or 2.5 hours, something like that. So I point at that car at the corners, where we're watching him. He turns, nobody else is there. It's a full way. Roll through. Because there's a climb, I definitely did not want to stop on that thing. So what I do when I'm climbing in the gear that I want to stay in and I don't want to shift per se, I make sure I pull up more than I push down. That's how you keep your stroke smooth. And now I lower myself because here we're even more exposed. The wind is on my right because north is to the right. We're headed west. And that thing's blowing. You can hear it sounds almost like thunder. So somehow the camera, those 3 microphones on there, the wind just bombards it. And I have it in the setting for wind only, which really keeps the wind down. So if it had been in stereo, it would have been electronically trying to adjust. And it would have been more hit and miss. So right here, we're slightly downhill to a flat road. And all I'm doing is harder gear, keeping the effort the same, because there's a tendency when you go downhill to back off. And I don't want to back off. I want to make sure I'm continuing to work. Because the guys that are following me get a bit of a break. So they're not necessarily in the same zone I'm in. But I'm working because I choose to. I want to make sure this workout has high quality today. Because the rides on Saturday and Sunday really fuel. I work towards them for improvement in my conditioning. Nothing's coming. It's a full way. It's a little neighborhood here. So we're coming to 249, the Tomball Expressway. We're going to go through Lone Star College. I decided to bring us back here because I want to show you guys the park. We didn't get to see that little steep climb in the back of the park because we had a problem with the camera last week. And Paul hit the speed bump. So right here you can see where Harvey washed out this road here. So they put those barrels over there so people don't drive in there by accident. You know, they're going to make this, that's probably going to be the frontage road when they're done because they're already building the express road here anyway. We're going through Lone Star College across the intersection here to use the back way once again. So I'm telling Paul and this guy to come off. There's a car behind us so the car can trigger the light. Because they have those sensors in the pavement that doesn't pick up bicycles. You can see the reflection of my light here. This thing is very powerful. The camera somehow is diffusing the light. But something about the way surfers did this light, it can be seen a long ways off. I mean, look at that. Look at almost like a spray of light. The camera is doing that because you can't see it with your eye like that. I've never seen it with that effect like that. I don't see that. You're not supposed to look at it because it's very powerful. So Surfers is a good company that's focusing on, I think it's a German company, I'm not sure, not 100% sure, but they focus on lights for bicycles. It's not an afterthought. So we roll through the intersection. We're going to go, Jeremy hasn't been through on our shortcut. So I mentioned that to him. And throughout this ride, it was very hard to have a conversation because the wind was just blowing everything away. And Jeremy is very soft-spoken. So here, I told Jeremy to follow me because he hadn't been through here. We're taking a shortcut. I told him that you might want to unclip if you're not comfortable. And he unclips there. And then he unclips again. So it's a tight spot to get through. He seemed to have gotten through okay. So now on this whole ride, you know, Paul's having trouble breathing. I think it's allergies or something. So all of that's been going on. And he's been dealing with all of that and hanging in like a trooper. So I'm not sure what we're talking about over there. I'm laughing. You know, we spend the time chatting here, and then we turn, and this is where you can see the grade is 4%. So right on that turn, right before the turn, it bites. That's why we come through that way. This is the climb we came through on last week. And you can hear the wind. So right now, we're not really doing anything that much as far as effort. We're kind of easing into it. But, you know, once it comes to a hill, you just want to go ahead and get it over with. I don't really like to ride slowly on a hill. I don't go full gas on every hill, but I just want to get over the hill as quickly as possible. Because I think it hurts going slowly on a hill. You're just prolonging it anyway. You find a gear you can handle and just ride the hill. You don't have to give it all you got just because it's a hill. So I really did not downshift for this hill. I just continued to turn whatever gear I was in. I stayed in the big chain ring, and then I stood up here. You can see when I stand, I keep my torso almost in somewhat of an aero position. It's almost like you can still recruit more muscles and keep your body close to how your road position is when you're seated. It's just something out of habit. You know, so once your bike fits you, you just end up looking really smooth, whether you're standing, sitting, and you can alternate. And that's all I did to get over the steepest pitch. So I stood up, didn't strain my back, used the power from my torso, kept it going. Jeremy's spinning a smaller ratio. Jeremy has an 8-speed on that bike. He likes to spin, it seems like. Spin a higher cadence, I guess. I want my legs to feel the gear today, so I'm not using a high cadence because we're riding easily right now. And so we turn here, and we're going to enter the park. And this is the park that I talked about. There's always something going on. And sure enough, today they closed off an area, and you're going to hear Paul's dismay, but we still had an option to still ride the steepest part. So as we enter the park, we see an officer has a white vehicle up front on the left there in front of Jeremy.
Did they close both ways, man? All right.
So they close our little loop that we do when we initially enter because they have, I think, a road race going on for runners, because we saw a lot of runners in the park. But this side is open. The course for the runners go across that road. That's why that car was there. So over here, the speed limit in this park is 20 miles an hour, 32 kilometers an hour. So all the vehicles in here adhere to that because they will not hesitate to stop them. You know, this park focuses more on people than vehicles. You can see all the people here parked on the left. I'm sure they're the runners and their families. So in this park, people rule. You know, pedestrians have the right of way, and that's just even in parking lots in Texas, pedestrians have the right of way. So you know, which makes sense. So we're backing off that truck just to make sure we don't have to stop. Yeah, there's some of the runners on the left. I guess they're done. This guy's leaving the road here. So we see runners continue to come on the left there. They're walking up. I guess their event is over. You know, some of the other people are still out there on course, of course. And there's a part of their course that comes across this road we're on, down here near where the speed bump that Paul ran over last week is. The course runs down here. So you see right there, that's the tape. That's the outline of the course. They marked the course over there. So you see all the little flags. the course goes from left to right across this road. And I go around in the dirt. Jeremy goes over the bump. Paul follows in the dirt. And I slow down a little bit to tell Jeremy to select the gear because I don't think he's been in this park. I said, this is the steepest climb. Select the gear. I'm keeping my cadence even below 70. I want my legs to hurt. And this is how you can do stuff. If you're riding with people who are not as strong as you, or they don't plan to ride hard that day, this is how you can do a weight training session on the bike. You know, you don't want to do something like this if you have knee problems or whatever, or your fit is off, or you're experiencing pain, because this puts a lot of stresses on your knee. So everything's got to be right. So by keeping my cadence in that zone, I stressed my legs over there, and I'm still chatting with Jeremy. So I got my workout, and we rode together. So you got to do it that way sometimes to keep, you know, different levels of people together. There are ways you can do it. We go in this curve, and Jeremy unclips. I guess he took a bad line, or he just wasn't comfortable with the turn, because we really weren't going that fast.
I take an art bike. That's a mid compact. 36.
We're talking about the gearing here. We're talking about compact, and I'm telling him that I have a subcompact, which is the 3652. He's riding a compact chainring, Jeremy is, and I was telling him that Paul has a bike that has a compact chainring. I'm not sure how we got into talking about the gearing, probably when we went up that climb. So again, I take the dirt, and you can see I get a gap on him. Just by going on that line, I mean, it's a little tricky. Sometimes there's too much sand there. You can get a little fishtail. And I'm waiting for him here. But I'd much rather do that than slow down for that speed bump. So I always do that. I'm always messing around. That's similar to what Christian does. I play on my bike. So right here, this is like a 2, it says 3% there. Reasonably sized climb. So we're just kind of riding it. You can see that Jeremy's using a smaller gear than I am. We're holding the same, but I'm working my legs because that's the kind of workout I want to do today. We're talking about gearing. We're talking about the compact chainring versus the 3953 that everybody uses as standard. And we're telling him that when we go to Chapel Hill, I use the orange bike because it has lower gearing. It has a 36 inner chainring, which comes in handy. So right here, it lessens a little bit. But then it goes back up there where you can see the road. There's a little bit of a bump. It goes back up. You get a slight reprieve, and it goes back up. Here are the runners we passed earlier. And the whole time we're riding, I'm watching these cars to make sure there are no brake lights or reverse lights. Nobody's backing out. That's what you got to do, you know, because they don't really see us very easily. And right here, these runners are gonna walk out. I called out to them, and they stopped. That's what I look for when there are parked cars. Look for little kids that might run out, whatever. I don't want to hit anybody on my bike or in my car. These people walking, so I move closer to Jeremy as we go by. So that's what I'm looking at when I'm riding. My eyes are always on the maybe areas, the blind spots. You know, this is the reason why I cannot conceive of people that ride with headphones on and stuff like that. I just can't see how you're riding safely if you do that. So up ahead, this vehicle here, he's talking to somebody. So I tell Jeremy to go left. So we'll go around, and because we know he stopped to talk to somebody. So we just go left. And we're leaving the park. So at least we got to show you guys that little bump back there. But I would come out here and do repeats. During the week, this park is dead. There's nobody in here. So lunchtime, I sneak out, ride here, do repeats. You do about four of those loops in there, you're ready to go home. And the store here that we stop at is on the left right up here. So we're talking, and I still got my workout in because I used a bigger gear with a lower cadence. That builds your strength. That's muscular endurance. Those are some of the programs that I put together for people who are trying to get stronger on hills. A lot of ways to get stronger in hills.
All right, man. You're second. You're riding good. That doesn't bode well when you're better. You have to call a pony.
Yeah, Paul is not well, and he's hanging in there, doing great, filming. You can hear him breathing from time to time. I heard that in the clip. So we filled our bottles,
Stretch.
and we're headed east. We're going home.
Home stretch.
Well, you know, we're
See what I was
we're
talking about?
probably
Yeah,
30
when you
kilometers
turn
from home, but we're headed homeward.
it- Yeah, this way is better. Yeah.
And this road has a nice wide shoulder. It didn't always have this. This is very nice. I hope they do something like this on Fish Creek. It's a nice shoulder here. This guy's blocking the road. I look behind. I wave at the car. It slowed down. I moved over. We didn't have to stop. And I moved back over since the driver was nice enough.
There you go, man.
And the driver ended up changing lanes and just used the other lane. I think it's that truck there. It just gave us the whole lane. I thought that was kind of cool. So I handed the camera to Paul and got to the front. The wind, of course, is here. Our coach is out here making sure we don't fall asleep. I was pointing at some obstacles on the road on the shoulder. Even though the shoulder is nice and wide, further to the right, you get a lot of little debris, little small rocks and pieces of glass. So you got to be careful. This stretch appears to be very clean, but I'm always watching this surface to make sure we're not riding over anything that can easily cause a flat. Reading the road is one of the number one ways you can prevent flats. So the cars parked here, there is a business here, I think, and they put these cones to allow their customers to park on the road. There's a security guard standing there all in black. I don't know if you even saw him, but so the people park here. I think it might be some kind of a nursery or some place where you buy a lot of products for farm or garden, something like that. So they just park on the street, get their stuff, and head out. So along here, I did a lot of editing because I spent a lot of time at the front. What I had noticed at this point in the ride was that Jeremy was not coming to the front that much. I think the distance and what we've been doing may have gotten to him. Doesn't matter. Just resume what we normally do. And I just sat up there and kept the effort steady. Right at the bottom of zone 4, top of zone 3 is where we are. We're turning right. I got my arms pointed right, mostly for the drivers, not just the cyclists. So the drivers can know we're turning, just in case one of them also wants to turn. So I always do that when I'm turning off of a busy road like that. I want the drivers to know we're going to use the road because we're turning. Because a lot of them figure, it's easier for them to figure that you're going straight most of the time, but I don't give them the doubt. I expect them to mess up. That's my default. I don't expect them to do the right thing. So I never assume anything. So this road's narrow, but the drivers out here, it's not a busy road. So they pass fairly smoothly to give us a lot of room on this road. Most of the time, there's not a whole lot of cars passing us. Today's a little unusual. Not really sure what was going on, but this road takes us, it's like a bypass. If we had gone straight back there, we would have gone into downtown Tomball. By going right on this road, we skirt the outskirts of the city and avoid all the traffic lights and all that stuff. There's a car up there, we're turning left, and he leans out a truck and he waves us over, and I thank him. Because he was coming kind of slowly, and that road dead ends into a neighborhood back there. That road does not go anywhere, so he's probably just coming from home. They're used to seeing us out here. I thought that was kind of cool. So we didn't have to break our momentum or anything. The wind is here. It's just dumped down, it's quiet. We're headed east. The wind is coming from our left. I didn't move over too much because the road's very narrow. And there's a lot of cars in either direction sometimes, so I didn't want to go way out. But there's enough room for people to drive properly if they need to. So we stop here, take up the lane behind these cars. The lane on the left is for people turning left to go north. We're going straight, which is east. So the light has changed. And you can see how easily I just step in, I'm clipped in. Sometimes I miss, and I've got a point in this video where I'll show that. But the boys here were taking a while to get clipped in, so I look back. And kind of waited for them a little bit. Because what I'm trying to do is stay with those vehicles ahead, so that when they trigger that light, we won't have to wait. And it ended up working out. By the time we get to this intersection, the light is green. I look back for Paul, and I'm waving him. I'm telling him, come on. I want to make sure we all get through. You see it turn yellow. It's not a very long light, but it was long enough today. It just worked out. That's Paul's breathing right there. You hear him. He's a little congested. I think it's allergies or something. So he's not 100%, and he's still hanging in there. That's why I made the comment at the stop. Like, you're hanging in and you're sick and you're not well 100%. Now, you can ride if you have a head cold like Paul has. But if you have a chest cold, we were told anything below the neck, you want to not ride and get it dealt with. Head cold and stuff like that, sometimes riding can actually clear your sinuses for you. So right here, you can see where I am on the road. You see that truck coming. He can see me because I'm out. That's what I do in these areas that got a lot of driveways. I don't ride by the curb. And you don't want to do that. If it's safe enough, stay near the middle of that lane, near that little dirty patch, so they can see you. If you stay by the curb too far, they won't see you till it's late sometimes. They're just not looking there. They're looking for a big boxy thing in the middle of the road. And even if you were riding a motorcycle, that's where you'd want to be. You don't want to be by the edge of the road. So there's a car back. That's the guy who was in there in that driveway. I move over, and I think I end up waving. Yeah, I wave him through because he's been sitting there following us. I want him gone. Just go. It's safe enough. Let him go. We've been getting a lot of that since we got the kit. Paul even ended up talking to somebody that had followed him pretty closely, and the guy explained and apologized. He said, I wanted to see what was on your jersey. So I point the obstacle out. We're turning left here. So I don't know if I want him following me close just to read what's on my jersey. Paul asked him if he was a cyclist or into cycling. He said no. I'm thinking, why does he care to know what's on your jersey? He wanted to see the website address or something like that. It was really odd. But, you know, he apologized to Paul because he kind of encroached in Paul's lane. And Paul was coming, I think he was coming over to this ride. Because the guy was trying to see what the jersey said, and I guess he couldn't see very well. So here we completely stopped. It's a four-way. That guy was already there. I just went ahead and waved him through. A lot of the drivers, what I've observed is they've encountered cyclists that are just dangerous, that will just run through stuff and do so. They don't trust us. You know, I've talked to people and they say, yeah, we want to make sure we know what the heck you're doing. Nobody wants to hit you. So that's why sometimes you will see some drivers that act like they don't know what they're doing. They've had bad experiences with other cyclists, and they don't trust that we're going to obey the rules of the road. And that's kind of sad. So, you know, that has stuck with me, and I'm going to make sure that we set the proper example. Because I've seen cyclists do exactly what I've just talked about. It scared me. You know, they assume the drivers are always going to stop, and so they run signs. You know, even when there are drivers waiting. So that's just not the proper thing to do, and you know, it just doesn't make any sense. So the wind's coming from our left and in our face, mostly from the left. We're headed east. North is on the left, and that's where it's blowing from, and it's not playing. So I'm in a big gear. I want to feel my legs. Now, I talked earlier about the gear choices. If I were riding with people who were constantly changing the speeds, I would probably go down 2 cogs and then increase my cadence to not fatigue my muscles too much to react to the changing speeds. But since on this ride we're cruising, you can ride a heavier gear. It's almost like you're in 6th gear or overdrive. That's the key. That's where you need to base your decision on. So Paul comes in front to give me a break and to get a better shot. And I take advantage of the break. So I'm telling him to watch that camera angle and make sure it's not just on him, since he's trying to get the back angle. I mentioned that to him. So it looked like it wasn't square. And so he was done, so I moved back to the front. And now we're headed north, so the wind is in our face directly. We are going into a headwind here. And this is why I talked earlier about it would be cool if we had a power meter so you could see how much more energy. This guy here stops cutting the grass when he sees us, and I thought that was really cool. He was trimming. I waved at him. He waved back. That was really cool because those weed eaters, they throw particles around. You don't want them stinging you. And he's aware, and that was really good to see. So what I was talking about is when you're going into the wind, you have to put out more power to keep 30 kilometers an hour if that's what you were doing downwind. And that's when you can really tell when you have a power meter display. That's what I was talking about earlier. So that's why it's on the list for the future. And I don't know when. It'd have to be the right price and the right power meter, unless a vendor sends us one to test or something like that. Or one of our super users sends us one. Super legends, I mean. So we turn on 2920. This is probably about 16 kilometers from the start of the ride. And of course, it's windy as usual. This is our Farm to Market Road 2920. You see the sign right there. It's always a challenge. It's a very deceiving road. And once we turned, I was trying to see if Jeremy would pull through. He didn't. I just continued. I think we talk a little bit here. So I think the light is going to change. There's a light up there at the intersection. So whenever possible, I try to time these lights, but it's not the case. We're not able to do that. So we have to stop. Time the light, meaning that I back off the power long enough to where I hit a green light. But it didn't matter here. We're too close. So at this corner here, I see another cyclist. I wave at him. He's sitting in the corner. He's wearing a Katusha kit, the full kit, which is the way to go. You're going to wear another team kit, wear the whole thing. Don't mix and match. It just looks better. So he's already turned left, and he's going ahead. He's in front of us down the road as we roll through this intersection here. We can see him. It's kind of hard to see him here on the screen, but we can see him. So he's about probably almost a half mile down the road. I thought Jeremy was going to take the lead, but it seemed like he didn't. So then I decided to just roll. So I move forward and I move to the left because the wind is coming from our left and in our face. There's a piece of concrete on the road there where people drop concrete and it hardens. And so I pointed that out. I don't know if you guys can see the rider. He's in that curve as this truck goes by. I think I end up freezing it in a little bit to point him out. It's not anybody I know. It's just I could tell by the way he rides that he's an experienced rider. And he had been looking back. There he is. He's in the full Katusha kit. And we roll. We're catching up to him. And he knows we're coming because we're actually on the left. He's on the right here. And as I go by, I said Katusha. And then I said Alexander Christophe. And he smiled. And you can see he's got the full kit. But by me saying what I did was, it was like an invitation to him, like, come ride with us. So he immediately slipped in the back of us here. And then the light changed over here. And, you know, in my mind, I was like, I didn't want us to just go through the light. We got cars sitting over there in both directions. I didn't want us to look bad. So I decided to just, because a lot of riders will slow down and go through here.
I'm torn between these kind of lights. Yeah. I didn't want us to look too bad.
So the light changes here, and I'm trying to get into my cleat here. And with my left foot, I miss it right there. I miss it. And then I just go right back. You see the pedal is, I'm just going to step right back in gently. And it just goes in. As if to say it's a regular pedal. You shouldn't have to put a lot of pressure on your pedals when you're getting in. Always practice that. You see, for some reason his foot came out there and Jeremy just went right back in. So maybe he was not fully engaged and it slipped out. But once you're engaged, you're ready to go. But you don't need to be putting pressure. Just let gravity do it. It should just drop in once you place your cleat in properly. So at this point here, the wind's coming from the left and I'm pulling. And we've got Oscar in the group now. He's behind us. You can't see him yet, but you will shortly. So Jeremy comes to take the lead. The wind's coming from the left, so he's sheltered as he goes to the front. So I drift. As they come by, I back off my speed, maybe 1 kilometer an hour. Just enough to where I get to the back. And basically, I get back there. Paul got a good shot here. Oscar waves at the camera. The first thing Oscar said when I pointed to the camera, he said, "That's a lot of work." He's talking about Paul. So we're laughing about it, but we got a chance to talk. I'm telling him about the channel, you know. So I got his name and I introduced myself as well. And that was kind of cool. And right there up the road, we noticed a cyclist on almost like a mountain bike or just a cross bike. He's just all over the road. His tires look a little deflated somewhat, and so we're watching him, and I let him know that we're coming. See his knee? That saddle's too low. That's the first thing I spotted. So he needs that saddle up a little bit, get a little bit of extension. But anyway, he was all over the road, so we went. That's what Paul just said. It's all over the road. And you hear that wind.
Oh, yeah? Where you going? Out of your way, man. You might probably get through the parking. Go back.
So I wasn't aware of this until working on the clip here. Jeremy just mentioned to Paul that we're passing where he lives across the street here. And to Paul saying,
At least about the
you
light,
should turn and go home, because he rode from here to the start of the ride. So he's riding extra 7 miles, 10 kilometers out of his way to go back to the start and come back. So that's a total of like 20K. And it turns out that he was getting a little tired at this point in the ride. So I don't understand why he just didn't turn and go to his house. So anyway, maybe he just needed the extra time on the bike. So at this point, yeah, I'm talking with Oscar, we're chatting, and I noticed that Paul is just not really trying and he's riding away. And Jeremy's not drafting him very well. So I ride up to Paul right there and decide, let's get on with this ride. So I go through, the wind is still coming from the left. Oscar is on my wheel now. And Oscar looks like he has a good position. And Oscar's a small guy, so as we go through this light, the road kind of goes up a little bit, and so he's in his element. Because if you're a smaller rider or a lighter rider, you don't have to put out as much watts per kilo to climb. So climbing is your terrain. So we go through here. I mean, I'm powering a pretty good sized gear here, and I just continue. And so we end up riding here side by side. So now Oscar being on my right, he's not really taking the lead, so we're riding side by side, but he's still getting the benefit of the draft because the wind is blowing from the north, which is on our left because we're headed east. And so that's actually a good position for him to be in. At this point, we're not really talking, we're just riding. And then shortly after this point here, he mentions to me that he's going to be turning left at the light that's coming up at the tollway. They call it the Grand Parkway. The joke on it is we call it the Grand Tollway. That's what they should have named it. But I guess it would be too obvious. You can look at Oscar and see that he's an accomplished rider. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He told us he had been riding like 70 miles today, something like that. It's the end of his ride. He lives not too far from us. His son goes to the school where we start the ride.
Oscar lives in the area.
That's what I'm telling the boys. He lives in the area. And that his kid goes to the school, Klein Oak, where we start.
Yeah? Okay.
He said he's doing 70 miles for that.
70?
Yeah. He said he's doing 70 miles. He has a kid that goes to Klein Oak. I told him, you feel like you check us out one day.
So Oscar's in the left lane right now. He's going to go through this light and turn left.
We're going too fast?
I said, actually, we had taken a little break.
He's not behind us. He's in the left lane where he should be.
He said he wants to ride with the other guy in the pass. Because the other guy's going slow. So you have to watch your car. Because he doesn't know what he's doing. He said at least he's going slow. I think he's on the downside of a 70-mile ride.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Solo.
Yeah.
Dedication.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, gotta get out. The weather we have here, crazy not to.
70 miles solo, that takes a lot of focus. Good for him. So the light changes, we roll. And right here, I think I froze it. Oscar's on the left there, where the overlay is. I froze it to show Oscar as he goes. Right there. Oscar's there. Then the truck comes by, obscures him, and then you can see him take the left lane. And he leans that bike, and he's gone. So I invited him to the ride. I told him where we're leaving from. I said, feel free to check us out if you're in the mood. Right here, I'm standing because I'm riding side by side with Jeremy on the edge of the road here. It's a little bumpy. So by standing, the bike can just bounce up and down. And I don't have to worry about pinch flats or anything. No compression on the tires. Plus, it's easier on your rear anyway. Easier on the components and everything. So that's how you do it. The road is questionable. Put the weight on the pedals. Let the bike bounce freely. So we're riding side by side here, and we're talking, and I'm straining trying to hear Jeremy because that wind is blowing away because Jeremy's very soft-spoken. So I'm leaning over listening to him, and we're just chatting. There is another light up here that usually it will be red. So we notice it's green, we're moving.
There is a lot of cars.
And then this van on the left here, Paul tells us a lot of cars. I had already spotted it, so I told Jeremy to back off and let the van turn. And so Jeremy looks back, nobody else is turning. Usually they'll get behind us, but that van was kind of weird. So we always expect the worst. I don't assume anything with these drivers. Not everybody's alert, paying attention. So this area here, this side is very windy, it's very exposed. I took out as much of the wind noise as I could, because really if you don't, it's just hard to enjoy it. It's a lot louder than you would hear being out there yourself. There's something about those microphones on these cameras. It seems to amplify things. So this road is rough right there, so I stood up. I took the weight off the tires. It's been kind of chewed up with heavy equipment going over it.
Yeah. Always it does on this road.
So right there, I told Paul, is it me or did it seem like the wind picked up? And he agreed with me. And so I'm standing here to stretch. The reason I do that is, for some reason, it just a few seconds that you stand seems to be almost like you're taking a break. It's just amazing. So just that little standing is as if to say it's like a reset. And your legs welcome it and you're ready to go again. Just changing your position momentarily. So we have the option of going straight, but we usually turn right on this street because it's just more bike friendly and it's more challenging. Because there's a section of it where it has a grade. And right here, my body's feeling really good because I wasn't sure how good I would feel because I only rode once during the week. And I guess everything just came together. It's in the mid 80s, close to upper 80s. So it's not that bad, 28C. Jeremy's sitting in. And, you know, Paul seems to have gotten over his respiratory issues. So hopefully the ride helped get him through all of that. And I just decided I would just sit up there and roll the pace. So 34 kilometers an hour is about probably 21, something like that. And we got a slight tailwind. Now we're turning here. We're going to have a cross headwind. And this road is a slight grade. Right after this curve, it kind of goes up. And so I decide I'm going to stay as aero as possible. So I basically got on the hoods, made my arms parallel, got my torso parallel to go ahead and get through. And it's just amazing what difference that position makes. Just seems to slice through the wind. You lower your torso, and all of a sudden, you're like, okay, what wind? Let the wind do its thing, and you just roll. And I was able to keep 33 kilometers an hour, even though it was a slight grade. But you can see, that's just my natural position there. Everybody looks different on the bike, depending on where you bend. I bend at my waist. Some people bend in the middle of their back. Some people bend in their upper back. It doesn't really matter. Whatever is comfortable. If you're comfortable, you will be able to generate power. So don't focus so much on being too aero, because you can sacrifice your ability to generate power. So we turn, we got the wind behind us here, but we got a lot of wind coming from the east, which is on our left. The wind direction is changing during this ride.
Come on, William, is this the best you can do? We're here. We are still here.
Yeah, I'm talking to the wind. Like, bring it on.
And we did good. Yeah. We're riding between 18 and 22. All of us.
So it was a tough day for a ride. It was very blustery most of the day, and then it got kind of warm. It started out nice and got really warm, so it was good. Good ride. Following this ride on Sunday, Paul and I did 3 hours 40 or something like that again. We're getting ready for the Grand Fondo, so we put in extra miles. But Sunday was a lot easier than this one. More zone 1 and zone 2 primarily. Almost like a long recovery ride. I was very hungry on that Sunday ride. I guess my body was burning more fats. I found myself eating more solids than anything. So it was a very good ride. At this point, we're kind of winding it down here. Asked Jeremy what he thought about the ride. He said it was good. It was okay. So Paul.
All right, guys, this is Jeremy with me. Paul just turned off, and we're wrapping up another epic ride. If you didn't get out today, make sure you get out tomorrow. We're gonna finish up this ride.
So this is what we did on Saturday, 7 October. Another epic ride. 3 hours and 22 minutes. Moving time.